Hi, my name is Keys and welcome to my channel. So today I'll be demonstrating my process for my Procreate digital painting. And the guy on the side is the reference picture I used, but I wasn't really able to capture his dramatic angle, but I tried. And I just really wanted to make something that was inspired by him. And I have a lot of trouble drawing men, so I definitely needed something very masculine looking so I could get his face right and everything correct. So I have very bright colors for the background, mostly because I was deciding on how I wanted it to be, whether I wanted him to have blue, green, neon green. I just knew I wanted something super bright, and I also knew I wanted to use the three colors blue, green, and pink. And I wanted the background to be the same color as his skin so that I wouldn't have as much difficulty blending his features, and all I would have to worry about would be the highlights and the shadows instead of the base color itself. So having the background the same color made it much easier for me to figure out his face and to blend everything in. And when I was drawing him, I just started with a basic sketch, and then afterwards I filled it all in and I blended the lines into the shadows of his face until they all disappeared. So I was using I believe the three brushes I use, I'm using Procreate, by the way, and the three brushes I used was the gouache brush, medium hard airbrush, I believe, and also I think later on, I can't remember, but so I did my shading with the gouache brush, and then I blended everything in with the medium to hard airbrush, so that gave him a really smooth face, but not too smooth and too glossy, and allowed me to build the foundation of his face. And I was having a lot of difficulty with his hair because as you can see in the reference picture, like his hair isn't like one blob, it's multiple little curly strands separated, and I had a lot of difficulty capturing that. So I didn't really focus on his hair when I started the painting. I mostly kind of just ignored it and then focused on his face. And the horns were another one of my difficulties. And for the horns, I didn't use a reference picture. I wanted to see if I could do it by myself, but that was kind of a mistake because no matter how much I blended, they just look like they were blending into each other, and I was trying to give it definition and give it that angular horn look so it looks like his horns have dimension, but it was so hard, and I couldn't pick a dark enough purple, a light enough pink for the highlights, and it was extremely difficult. But eventually I started to get a foundation out for his horns, and I just really wanted to bring some emphasis into everything in this digital painting. The color of his hair, the color of the liquid coming out of his mouth, and the color of his horns. Wait, those are all the same, but I wanted to make everything stand out. So his hair is a bright royal blue, and it stands out because it's in the center of the piece, and it's in the middle of the painting, and it's like that and his eyebrows are the only blue thing, but also the whole painting is filled with green, so your eyes are immediately caught by that. But then there's bright pink and purple, which is green's complementary color, so it was a good choice to kind of make his horns and the liquid coming out of his mouth and his eyes a pinkish color, because doing that, it made them stand out more, so everything kind of stand out in their own way. And I was going for a more closer rendition of the reference picture, but then I was like, I can't do it, so I just kind of gave up. And that's why his chin isn't as up as the reference picture, because I really couldn't capture that. I kept on blending in and out of his chin. I was like, no, it's just not happening. So I opted for him not dramatically putting up his chin, just him looking the other way, not really just even him, moving his chin up at that angle. I just want him to just turn around slightly, because that's all I felt like I could capture, and I couldn't really get the dramatic angle of his neck. And the ears, I don't know why I didn't give him normal ears, but I wanted him to look kind of inhuman. So I just want something different for his features. I also had a lot of trouble with the nose because it just looked, it didn't have enough, the side of it didn't have enough dimension. And so I just kept on trying to blend it in. And then the shadows for the neck and the eyes, I just tried to make them darker and darker and darker so that he would eventually come out of the background and he would stand out. So the whole point of this is it's supposed to be inspired by like grape juice. I know that sounds kind of weird, but that's what's supposed to be coming out of his mouth, like fermented grapes and wine. And so that's why he has that liquid coming out of his mouth. I remember when I was thinking about this drawing, that is all I wanted to capture. I wanted to just have that happening, but I didn't know how I wanted to make it happen. And so eventually when I started the drawing and I realized that's how everything was coming together, I realized it kind of made sense, so I just went with the idea. And eventually I got the courage to fix his hair. So I started by kind of fixing his hairline because that was wonky, and then I subtracted from all the blob that was his hair and kind of gave it more definition, and kind of really looked at the reference picture and tried to really emanate what the reference picture had going on. And I really wanted for his hair to look like something, because I feel like his hair at the angle that he was looking wouldn't be perfectly round. So I just really wanted to capture the individual curls, and that was still difficult because at this point it still looks like one blob of hair, but it does kind of have like a triangle shape, so it does have an interesting thing going on for it. And then I added little highlights so his hair could have something more different, and I was really having trouble with those curls because it looked like he's wearing a really bad wig, but I had no way of fixing it. So I just kind of went darker and darker, and I feel like at this point I was super proud of how his hair was turning out, because this is something really different that I tried to do with his hair, giving it the coils and stuff. And then at this point I just added more and more, and I tried to make it look like it was at least going at the back of his head and curling towards the back of his ears, and I just added more darker shades and try to swipe it in a direction towards the back of his head so that it would look more three-dimensional and not like just a blob or a fake wig. And eventually it kind of came around looking like that. And I feel like at this point I still didn't know what I wanted to do with the horns, because they still kind of do look plain. And then I was like, okay, more darkness to define the horns and make them more pointy, make them more angular, and just outline them from the background. Because even though they're not the same color as the background, they still kind of they didn't have their own edge. There wasn't enough highlight and enough shadows to kind of make the horns stand out. And I feel like at this point they were really starting to come together, and I just added more more highlights and more shadows, and then it was happening. And I gotta say, I just realized I didn't make his neck big enough. His neck just looks so flat, and kind of disappointed in that. But aside from that, I think he looks really good. I like the little angular thing at the bottom of his eyes that kind of separates the side of his face to like his cheeks and the underneath of his eyes. I don't know what I'm talking about. But let's see, the pink liquid coming out of his mouth, I still want to add more details to that. It was supposed to look more liquidy, but now I don't know. And I feel like the stream is it looks good, but I don't think water works like that. But maybe it's magic water, so it doesn't matter. And I eventually blended in his body to the background for more effect. Then I added more highlights, and I really didn't define his earrings, which I should have. Then I attempted to define his hair, which I should have done some more. And then now I just attempted to add more details, like finer lines to everything. Finer lines to his hair, darker lines, and just more dark stuff. And that kind of really saved this drawing, because this really added the dimension his hair needed. And the shadows around his eyes, the darkness of his eyebrows. Like his eyebrows, they couldn't look too bright and blue. They had to look at least a little bit dark. And then I gave him some eyelashes, which were really, really difficult because eyelashes never look right when you draw them on a character. They always look like clogged spider webs. And I really wanted him to look very pretty, so I wanted to give him eyelashes. And I'm glad these eyelashes, at least it looks like he has eyelashes going on, so that came out very nice. And eventually I just added some final touches. Usually when I'm finished with my signature, I add more random stuff because I'm like, oh my god, it would look so good if I added this and that. So I just added some grapes and some more dots, and I just couldn't stop. So I just added more and more random flower patterns. But they really did accent the drawing and made it look much nicer. So I'm really glad I did that. And the dots are they look really nice, and his horns popping out like that. And then I attempted to add some random patterns, but they were too light, so it didn't really stand out the way I wanted it to, and the lines were too thick. I think at this point I was really, really tired, so trying to add extra details came out really wrong because everything was so light, and I was like, oh my god, whatever, it's okay. And I'm still not done. Well, more random stuff around his horns, and then more highlights for his face, just like make everything look more shiny. I think his neck and his collarbones are definitely too shiny. And then here's a close-up. You could see all the random stuff, and I added some patterns to his horns, and his hair just looks so greasy, oh my god. But but I was super proud of this drawing because even though his nose looked a little wonky, it was still such a great achievement. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye bye.